Alright, another response video to the Modern Mystic. I don't know if it's going to have much content in it. We'll just see where it goes. He made a video just calling me a propagandist and a liar and a manipulator and, all this other kind of crap. And kept saying, I'm not talking about Gary, but I'm talking about Gary, which doesn't make much sense. But yeah, I didn't provide any details of exactly how I was wrong. I mean, if he could just have taken one piece of the thing and just said, well, this is the look, this piece is a perfect example. I said this, and you completely perverted what I said, and this is just so preposterous that you must have done it on purpose or something. Because that's just not the truth. I do understand what you're saying. I mean, look, you got three. Okay, I mean, instead of saying revenues in, expenditures out, spending, and revenues in from bonds, revenues from taxes, spending out, and revenue in from bonds. You do building 1, 2, and 3. Okay, what? I can't understand that. I mean, it's just such a pile of crap. I think the point is if you run this system, this capitalism. Okay, that's what I'll do a general argument and just see if you can make anything out of the general argument. You're basically of the mindset that there's only really two choices. There's Ronald Reaganism or there is Stalinism. And there can't be anything in between, basically. That it always ends up floating one way or it floats the other way, but it just can't seem to do one or the other. And if you have to take your choice, you'll choose the Reaganism. All right, my argument is the Reaganism will always do the 1929 crash thing because it will always, 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 always end up overpaying people for not working and underpaying people for working, and it's going to create an inequity where now workers can't fund their own government anymore. They can't do anything anymore. Okay, because the richest have exempted all of their capital from taxation, and the poor, all the burden is on them now, the middle class or the working poor. And so, yeah, it's going to fail because they're just going to chase the exploitation thing. They'll chase the Chinese cheap labor or some other cheap labor, and so the value of labor goes down, the value of ownership goes up. And especially now if they can engineer all these middleman rackets, where the banks all have, the banks aren't doing, you're correct, the banks aren't strictly taking money in and lending money out. No, they're just basically lending money out and taking a cut on every transaction. So they don't really care, whether a loan's good or bad or this or that, because they're going to resell that loan anyway because they want to do another transaction and make some more money. So they'll take in somebody can bring into the bank their stock portfolio and just say, here, I own $1 million worth of stock. How much will you give me for it? And like a pawn shop. So the banks are basically pawn shops. People take in their stock and throw it in there, and they'll call it a home equity loan or some kind of bullshit like that. That's how they'll sign it in. And the bank will give them cash. And so now they can take that cash and buy more stock. So here's the racket, right? So they can say they have a stock portfolio that's producing 15% a year. It's really good stuff. They put it in the bank and pay the bank 4%, right? On this equity loan, because the bank said, oh yeah, these are really good assets. This is hard stuff. We'll only charge you 4%. So here they're getting 15% on their stock. They put the equity of the stock into the bank, so they still own the stock. They're going to get the profit off their stock. So they're getting their 15%, and they're going to pay the bank 4%. So now they're down to 11% on that stock portfolio. But now they also have $1 million in cash to put back in the stock market. Okay, so that's the racket. That's this, I'm going to recapitalize my capital. So they just keep recapitalizing their capital. They keep borrowing on their capital. And that's what all this derivative crap is. So, where the real economy is here, this huge bubble economy of claims of ownership would end up being these little IOUs, is way the fuck out here. And all of that, all of this fat air, all of this dead air that still claims on real dollars, remember, well, that's all held by that richest 5 or 10%. None of that's held by anybody else. I mean, it is technically just because a big hunk of that is all stock market, right? So the stock market just shows it, reveals itself. It's not a lie. It's right there in front of our faces. Go look at the stock market, and it'll say, well, here's the market cap of a company. Google, $160 billion. Now, if you took the assets that Google owns, right, the buildings and the property, and even some of the extraneous stuff like their their marketing name and some other kind of bullshit, and even gave that some value, and even gave the employees some value. You know, it comes out to what, 10 million, 20, 30 million in real assets and real computers and hardware and real hard stuff. Well, maybe it's 200 million. But anyway, let's just say it's going to be a tiny percentage of what that market cap is. So all these stock certificates say $1 million worth of stock. Now, actually, that $1 million is only, you know, $50,000 in real assets if you had to sell the thing tomorrow. And that's the racket. And so, in my opinion, the real run on the bank that they haven't prevented, that no FDIC insurance can prevent, the real run on the bank is the stock market run. Okay, it's the little people run to the bank and say, give me my money. Okay, it's when the big guys decide to start running to the stock market and say, give me my money. You know, when they start saying, I want my $1 million because it looks like it's going to turn into 50,000, so I want to get the fuck out. That's the run on the bank. That's when it all falls down. And that's what it, and again, we're set up. Every condition exists for the perfect storm. I mean, the clouds are there, the lightning, the thunder, the wind is blowing in both directions, the waves are 7 feet high. It's all there, and all these assholes are just sitting there saying, nah, I don't know. Looks like it's going to be partly cloudy or something. Let's go fly a kite. I mean, it is. It's 1928. Okay, we're living it again, and the whole thing's going to fall, and all these people are going to start jumping out of windows and everything, and all that crap is all going to go, it's all going to happen all over again. Same old. And that's what it's always going to do when you have all these middlemen saying, I want a cut of every transaction, plus the owners saying they want to collect the biggest piece of the pie for all the labor produced. It's just it's broken. So I'm just saying, I'd rather Stalin. I mean, I don't want Stalin, don't get me wrong. But if I only have two choices, middlemen, exploitation, stealing all the value, preposterous waste, 10 million idiotic jobs that produce no work. I mean, all these capitalists, you keep talking about government, how they don't work. Capitalists don't work in preposterous proportions. All they do is scheme and wheel and deal and send spam emails, and all these stupid entrepreneurs. There's no such thing as an honest entrepreneur. They're not, they're just resellers. They're not, you know, it's like they're not teaching people how to fish. They're just fish salesmen. You know, they found a new racket. Oh, I can sell the fish tails. I'll sell those to people. I just won't tell them there was a real fish attached to it. I'll just tell them that I caught the tail by itself. Or some sort of bullshit, some lie, some cheat. Okay, so they can undercut somebody else's game. And then that's not even talking about the bankruptcy thing. Okay, I keep bringing that one up. But that's a part of the whole racket of this big giant pile of shit they've built. Is they've eliminated true accountability for failure. They say they're risk takers, but they're lying because they've put a net underneath themselves called bankruptcy, where they can basically bounce out of their liability. And they do it all the time now, especially when they're diversified. So now they can, all they have to do is own 3 or 4 companies, and they're immune. Because one of them goes bankrupt, so what? I got the other 3. And they'll probably do more business now because one of my businesses is out of business. And all these businesses own each other. Google owns Yahoo stock. Microsoft owns Google stock. Google owns Yahoo. I mean, they're all fucking playing ball with each other. So it's all a game that gets played with all these capitalist crap. And if we just did the investment straightforward and we just said, hey, we're going to establish a business and we're going to make it accountable and it's going to have to be productive and all of these standards. Like I say, all you have to do is get rid of the union crap. You get rid of the workers running the company, and the people can run a company. So let the consumers be the ones who have the power, not the workers. And the consumers are going to be workers. And so they're not going to be totally exploitative, because they're not going to be the lazy rich eating bonbons saying, I want my 20% cut for sitting on my fat ass eating chocolates and farting. Yeah. Anyway. So do something with that picture. Do something, you know, but this idea that I somehow completely misunderstood what you were saying. Points of light, building 1, 2, 3. I mean, I'm sorry. You're spelling a really convoluted metaphor. You even said in your video, oh, this is so complicated, so complicated. I don't think it's so complicated. All you have to say is people are trading IOUs for IOUs and collecting profit on the transactions for the IOUs. It's like they're getting interest on interest-bearing commodities. So they're like selling. It's like they're just trading. First, they're getting money on each trade, and then they're trading debt. They're trading a 4% debt for a 6% debt, and a 7% debt for a 4, and they're making interest on the transactions of the trades too. So, but it's all the interest. It's all these. The interest is what creates the new IOU, correct? I mean, that's really basically how we expand the number of IOUs, is through the collection, the acquisition of these claims of ownership, these IOUs. And that's the menace, okay? There's too much. Consumers borrow too much, businesses borrow too much, governments borrow too much. There's way too many claims on a minimum future, a future that's not nearly productive enough to pay all of those IOUs. And that's the problem. And so now we have to decide whose IOUs are going to be good. But I don't think I've perverted your argument. I don't think I've cheated it. I don't think I've propagandized on it. I don't think I have done anything justifying comparison to Goebbels or Hitler or any of this other crap. I'm not selling a lie. I'm selling what I sincerely believe and what I'm sincerely willing to defend. And I just think it is just so... It just sucks that you would pull out this propagandist card bullshit after all of these fucking videos, after going through all of this minutia, that you would accuse me of, selling a fake baked potato or whatever the fuck you're accusing me of. So anyway, yeah, enough.